as with many wrestlers in that circuit, however, during this time, the travel and celebrity made his marriage fall apart. He had a lot
Yeah.
of difficulty with his marriage. I know that his wife had some mental issues along the way as well. And he also began to develop a serious cocaine addiction.
Yeah.
And so he was beginning to become visibly heavier, which impacted his already limited ring work. Ted, is there any specific instance that stands out where you recognize that JYD was starting to battle some pretty serious issues?
Not really. I'm not anything that I could think of. I knew that. I know he was fairly, I guess, secretive about what he was doing with most people. But I knew he was doing the coke too. And the thing about cocaine, I mean, it's kind of like by the grace of God, I never have had any kind of addiction to alcohol or drugs or anything. I could, like I said, like I couldn't stand to smoke pot because all it made me do is sit in the corner and get real hungry.
Mm-hmm.
But I had toyed with the cocaine, uh, but very little, and it was kind of like one of those deals where I could see where it could lead to being addictive. And for me, the only reason, it's like, I mean, a lot of guys that were doing it, they just do it every day. But, the only time I would do it is if I had a real long trip
Mm-hmm.
because it was a stimulant, because it would keep you awake. And it was like, that was more the reason I did it than any reason. Was just to stay awake so I could get through a trip. It was crazy. If I'd have been paid by the mile, I'd be the multi-million-dollar man.
Hundreds of millions of dollars by
Yeah,
now.
yeah,
Man, it's insane. And, for all that kind of travel, you probably need something a little bit stronger than coffee to get through it, which
yeah.
is,
And so and again, I don't promote drugs of any kind. I mean, obviously, my whole life changed. When I rededicated my life to Christ, and a lot of the fans already know that like I'm an ordained minister. I don't pastor a church or anything like that. I guess you would call me an evangelist, because I go and I speak in churches. I speak to a lot of men's groups, and I tell my story and of getting back to a place where uh, you know the single greatest relationship in my life is not with my wife, it's with Christ. And that's you know but that's what it is. And like, and I look back at a lot of things, a lot of the stories I'm sharing with you guys and the people is like, I think back to a lot of that traveling we did, and for wrestlers it was just, I was like kind of like uh, after the show you stop at the 7-Eleven, you get a case of beer, and down the road you go. It's kind of like, and um, I look back at that, and I go, sometimes I go, I just need to thank God that I'm still alive and well, because and it's truly amazing to me that there weren't more accidents, with
oh,
with the talent, and guys getting in trouble with the law, but they didn't.
I
I,
mean, you and your crew of guys were not some rare exception where you guys were the only ones who were buying a case of beer and drive. This was happening in basically every single car as these guys are traveling all
yeah,
these miles.
yes,
So it's absolutely nuts that there weren't more fatal accidents and
yeah,
tragedies along
yeah,
the way. And
yeah.
yeah, let me be clear for our listeners. At no point as we're recounting any of this are we condoning the use of any drugs, alcohol,
No, not at
anything.
all.
More than anything, we're just trying to recount the truth. And by the way, if anything is going to turn you off of getting into drugs and certainly cocaine, it's the story of JYD here.
Yeah,
Because here's a guy. He was at one point. It's reported that he was making something like $12,000 a week, which is an absurd amount of money at the time in
yeah,
professional wrestling. So he was doing very, very well, but due to his drug problems, he's starting to experience some financial issues as well. So it's drugs. He's also a really generous guy, and he's giving a lot of money away to folks. And so he was struggling financially and with some demons. And that's around the time here that he receives an offer from Vince McMahon to come to the WWF, which is the
Yeah.
summer of '84.